Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Fintech Fridays, where I get to talk to cool people from cool companies about cool products. And I think we're going to hit on all three of those today. Joining me is a new friend of mine, Pramod, PK. PK, just so I don't have to go on record completely butchering your last name, say your last name for the audience.
It's going to be Kollamparambil.
There you go. Kollamparambil. I did it.
Close enough.
Well, for purposes of today's episode, you're going to be known as PK. How's that?
That sounds good. My friends call me PK.
Right on. Well, hopefully we're friends now. So you and I met through LinkedIn, and you joined a small cohort of mortgage professionals in a kind of a LinkedIn coaching session last month. And before we get into Loanscape and all the cool things you're doing there, what's your take on the LinkedIn platform and specifically what you learned from Darren McKee during our cohort last month?
Yeah, it was a great learning session. Personally, I had been using LinkedIn, but not like effectively. I think that's kind of like where a lot of people fall into. It's super powerful, and I'm new to the industry relatively, so like it's not that I know, like I don't have 20 or 30 years of experience in all these connections and things like that. So for me, it was a way to leverage a platform and build out a network, get to know people within the industry, make new friends like yourself, and kind of get the word out about what we're working on and building, but do it in like an authentic way rather than trying to like fake our way into it or something. And so for me, that mastermind was like connecting the dots on how do you actually do it authentically by being yourself, and also, get the word out about what you're working on and building and things like that.
Yeah, it's the whole platform is fascinating to me. Every day I'm uncovering kind of new value or benefits in the platform, but I'm also, uncovering ways where I'm clearly not leveraging my decades of connections in a way that are meaningful, not just for my business, but also, for my brand, but also I really think about this idea that folks like myself that have been in the industry for decades owe it to folks like you who are coming into the industry and will be here for the next 3 decades. And so I think about the platform for me as a conduit to kind of share my experiences in our great industry with kind of the up and coming stars. And PK, you're gonna be in that bucket, man. You're onto something pretty cool with Loanscape. So let's get into that.
Yeah, definitely. Happy to answer questions there.
So Loanscape, how and when did it come to be?
Yeah, so Loanscape, initially we started working on it about 18 months ago. We're filming this, September. So roughly 18 months ago, we kind of like pivoted into Loanscape. Prior to Loanscape, my co-founder Evan and I were, trying to sell a different product into wholesale lenders. And, that was when rates had started going up and everybody was just pulling back on marketing and growth essentially. Right. So we heard enough no's and we were like, okay, maybe we need to kind of change our perspective. And so instead of trying to sell them a product, which, potentially helps them make money, our perspective shifted to how can we build a product that helps them save money? And that was really kind of like where we heard the pain points from lenders. And so we heard a lot of pain points about kind of like the incumbent product within like this broker onboarding space, which kind of made us curious. We had a bunch of people asking us to do demos when we didn't have any product. And for us, that was like, okay, maybe that's a sign of there's a lot of pain there. And so we started investigating that through one thing after another. We met Carrie, who's our advisor on the lender side. And so she had been in the industry for roughly 30 years. And so she had run broker onboarding and counterparty risk for Loan Depot and various other lenders throughout her time in the industry. And we kind of mapped out the product, built it out, built out mock-ups and things like that, and brought that in front of lenders, got some good feedback. And then we had enough conviction, late last year in the fall to go and actually write the code and invest time and energy and money into building it out. And so we did that, launched our MVP in March, went live with Gold Star Financial out of Detroit. And then last month we went live with Quantic Bank, and then non-QM funding from NQM funding from Florida. So those are the two lenders we went live with last month. And then hopefully we got a few more in the pipeline later this year that are going live as well.
Cool. So I don't know if you know this, maybe you do, maybe you looked at my background, but I spent close to 30 years in the third party origination space, right? And primarily on the side of the space I think that you're selling into, which is the wholesale lender itself, right?
Yeah, wholesale lenders, correspondent lenders, and then warehouse banks.
Right.
Yeah.
And so just so we can articulate this problem for the audience, what we're talking about is, as a wholesale lender or a warehouse lender or a correspondent lender, we all have, and I had to, we were responsible for counterparty oversight and management, including due diligence when you bring on a new client, right? And as you go, as you go across the continuum from broker to mortgage banker and all the services in between, the risk tolerance the risk gets a little bit bigger as you go up the continuum. And so layer into that, some of the regulatory requirements on counterparty oversight. Most lenders, absent a platform like Loanscape, and maybe some of the incumbents, would do that in-house on their own, maybe using a checklist and that type of thing.
Excel spreadsheets, PDFs.
Yeah, exactly. Did it all. I did it all. So tell us a little bit about how because when I think about this, the solution, to me, the solution has to benefit both sides of the equation, right? It's got to, clearly you're monetizing it through the lender entities. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we, the lender, have to get our counterparty to use it.
Correct.
So how have you solved for that?
Yeah. So a couple of the big pain points that we heard was that, that the lenders would have to, handle support, and they would have a lot of support inquiries. We even saw lenders who had, a large, team of staff on payroll, and their entire job was to essentially, support brokers using the incumbent software platform in the space. And that was a huge, pain point that we heard and saw over and over again. So for us, the two big insights there was A, we got to have really solid support, and then B, just make the product modern, easy to use, and anybody has to be able to use it. It has to be stupid friendly, and so that's kind of how we built the product. So a lot of our enhancements on the broker side or the TPO side is really making it super easy to use, super intuitive. You and I use iPhones, and most people in the world, or at least in America, are friendly with kind of the user experiences we get with downloading apps, using apps, and even some of the online platforms, right? So our question or our thought process was how can we build something so easy to use, intuitive, and just modern, so that we can guide them through that process. And if they have any questions, they have phenomenal support readily available, and take that away from the lender side, rather than having to burden the lenders with handling support for our platform. So it's we're the tech platform. We know our product best. We'll support our users on both sides of the table.
So, and I had not had the pleasure of, demoing the product. So we're going to do a demo without seeing it, but we'll describe, more or less what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
And, and I'm familiar with at least one of the incumbent solutions that's out there. I used it on one side of it as the lender.
Yeah.
How are you thinking about, there's a lot of stuff that we ask for from a, let's just start with the wholesale lender and a broker. So there's a lot of information we ask for from a broker. Mm-hmm. Some of that information is data. A lot of the information is documents.
Yep.
And inside the documents, there's data. Are you doing anything with the information that's on the documents to help kind of speed things along for the lender on the back end?
Great question. So a couple of things. So you're spot on with the data piece, right? So like 80% of the information between any wholesale lender that a broker is signing up with is going to be the same thing. So the big pain point is every time a broker has to sign up with a lender, now they got to start at the top and then fill down the information. And it can be quite a big challenge. What we do is we allow them to kind of like create their profile. And that way we're, their DBAs, E&O insurance, and like where the business address is, the branches, and all these different like details that almost every wholesale package is going to ask for. We allow them to store onto the platform. And then from the lender side, whatever documents you need, you can create custom requirements. If you want to use our standard requirements, you can use that. And every time you onboard a broker, it automatically pulls into your side so you can start reviewing that document. And then the other piece there, so there's two other pieces. So one is that we offer API. So that a lot of lenders, they want to take some of that data and put it into their CRM or their LOS and things like that. So those are like the two big use cases we've seen. And so our platform has the capabilities to handle that. And then the other one we're launching later this year is really on the document review side and helping lenders automatically review those documents. And otherwise, you have a human manually reviewing a lot of documents and it can get quite laborious.
Yeah.
So we're trying to help on the automation side of that too.
Do you have, as you think about the data that you're collecting and comparing that with a checklist and whatever an audit reviewer is going to look at the lender side, or is there anything that you're doing within the technology itself to help maybe streamline that review process and even maybe doing some of the review?
We have actually, talked to a lot of lenders about potentially, we call it, we were, positioning it as more like a done for you service where we kind of like centralize that entire process. That way we can help, almost like what we thought was like, hey, we'll vet the TPO, we'll check their financials and everything like that. The lender pays a flat fee every time they just want to onboard a TPO, and then we'll do all the third-party verification and things like that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I love the idea on where you're thinking there, but like unfortunately, we've had a lot of. I think we're like 2 steps away from that. I think the first step is let's build this out, and then once lenders are comfortable with that, then we kind of progress towards something like a platform like that.
Right.
We tried going to market with that as we're an early stage startup, so we were throwing a lot of things against the wall and seeing what stuck. And we had a lot of flexibility with our business model, but we did not see lenders jump at that opportunity or that idea. I think it was too far ahead where they couldn't see themselves letting go of that kind of process. But I think eventually we can potentially, as an industry, trend towards that line. But I love what you're thinking. And me coming from the outside of the industry prior to this process, I was like, why isn't there just one central organization that just takes care of it and then just tells the industry, work with this person or don't work with this person, or what the risk is associated with that individual or that company?
Yeah, I think what you'll find is it would be less about yes or no and more about here are the facts.
Yeah,
you determine. Yeah, whether or not they're a fit for your particular business model.
Yeah, and also every lender is a little bit different in terms of what kind of risk they're willing to take. So they might, one lender might approve a broker, whereas another lender might say, we don't want to do business with them.
Right.
The other aspect is quality versus quantity. We've seen a lot of lenders in the past, it was all about quantity of brokers that they've approved. And so that would add a lot of expenses to the P&L. Now we're kind of starting to see the trend of lenders really scrutinizing the quality of the broker and seeing how many loans are they actually sending us, and are they revenue generating partners, or are they just partners that keep on renewing with us every single year, but they don't actually send us any business.
Right.
So we're starting to see that shift as well.
Yeah, that's been an age-old ongoing issue or problem in the industry. Does the platform tap into any publicly available data sources as well?
Yeah, so right now what we're working on is we're trying to build in basically NMLS monitoring, all the different exclusionary lists from HUD, Fannie, Freddie, all those different exclusionary lists, and then offering that as like a service where we basically scrub the TPOs against those lists to make sure that the lenders aren't onboarding any of those individuals that have potentially faulty licenses or are on like an exclusionary list. So we're building that in-house. And so we're excited to kind of kick that. We didn't think that was possible for the longest time. So because a lot of these exclusionary lists are kind of hard to get your hands on. as you're probably aware. So we found, through some research, very intensive research, we found our ways to be able to kind of build that and offer that in-house. And then we also are able to offer that at a really competitive price. So that's something to look forward to later this year as well.
Last question, kind of, I'm really curious around, as a startup, how you mentioned a couple lenders. I happen to know Gold Star. They're not too far from me here. They're also a FinLocker partner. How close, like how involved have they been? Somebody like a Gold Star, not necessarily Gold Star themselves, but how involved have your early customers been in kind of informing the product?
Yeah, that was the early customers were, they're godsends. Like they're perfect early adopters. I'm so grateful for them because and before we even wrote code, we did the mockups. And so I mentioned Gold Star, I mentioned Quantic, and I also mentioned NQM Funding. But besides those three, we also did a lot of demo sessions with a lot of even top 5 wholesale lenders. And I'm very grateful for the industry. It's because they took a call with an early stage startup who didn't even have a product at the time. And they would bring their entire teams on and then really give true good feedback. But that got us from point A to point B. And then the paying customers, they're really phenomenal because they have vested interest. So when they bring up ideas, they're thinking about our product and bringing ideas to the table. I'm like, oh wow, I didn't even think of that. And then we're able to go and execute against that. And so one of the things we pride ourselves on is being able to execute on those ideas. And we've been very thoughtful and just really. We really care a lot when they bring up ideas. We want to, if it's a good idea and we really understand their needs and how urgent it is, we're really good about going out and building a solution and sometimes even enhancing the concept that they even brought to the table. So we really like to ship fast and take that feedback and have a tight feedback loop.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, PK, man, congrats. You've entered into a pretty special industry. It's, might not seem like it, in the current times, but it is a wonderful industry. I'm super excited to have some energy, some youth come into it, and some new viewpoints and new technology. Anything else you want to share with our audience on what's going on at Loanscape? How do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn.
There you go.
Staying active on LinkedIn. So if you want to reach out and talk about counterparty risk, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. Our website is loanscape.io, and we have a contact page there so you can get a hold of us. Or if you want to just shoot me an email, it's pramod@loanscape.io.
Awesome. Well, Pramod, thanks so much, man, for coming on. Congratulations on the launch. I wish you nothing but the best, and look forward to having you back on in a upcoming episode to kind of hear all the great stuff that you've been up to.
Appreciate it, Brian. Thanks for having me on as well.
Thanks, everybody. Tune in 2 weeks for our next episode of FinTech Fridays.